oh yeah, Tej, I've been researching property for 2 years. Shut up. Look at the camera for this. Shut up. You don't research property for 2 years. I wanted something that could just give me freedom.
You started investing in Wales.
Right move. Book all the viewings I can, like 15 viewings in a day, no toilet breaks, no food breaks. It was hell. The people in the government don't actually understand property. Tej, mate, your ceiling's on the floor.
No way.
I was like, are you drunk on site again? Doing refurb would make me anxious.
Just feel bad for you. You've been so scarred by builders.
If you don't do it, I'm gonna embarrass you. Don't get in this with me if you're not ready to be told off. What the
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today I am very pleased to be joined by Tej Singh, better known as Tej Talks. How are you today, Tej?
I'm good. I haven't recorded a podcast in a very long time, so I'm looking forward to this.
And we've been talking about doing this for some time, so I'm very excited to have you. Just a very quick intro. Tej, you're a podcaster, you are a developer, you're a property investor, and over the last few years, since 2018, you built up a property portfolio worth 1.3 million, buying 15 houses in a tiny time frame of 9 months. Some people do that over a lifetime. You managed to cram it into 9 months. World famous podcaster, I must say, with nearly a million views all across, I don't know how many different countries. You've written 2 5-star books, and you've also got your own mentorship and education program. How do you get it all crammed in? I'm incredibly excited to find out a little bit more. But before we go into all of that, I want to find out a little bit more about you personally and your background and the type of person you were at school. You come across a little bit mischievous at times. Were you always in trouble? Were you ever expelled? Were you entrepreneurial? Or, who were you at school?
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that. I think that's a really good word, actually. I'm going to use that now to describe myself. I definitely was expelled, not like fully. There were like different levels to it, weren't there? Like I was like where it was like go home for a day.
Suspended.
It's suspended. That's it. So I never got the. I'm Indian. What would my mum say? Like it wouldn't even happen. Like it's impossible. I'd be dead. So I definitely got suspended. You know what? I would say at school I was the total opposite of what I'm like now. I was super quiet, super angry most of the time. Quite. You could say a recluse. Wasn't social. I wasn't, like now I'm quite active. Then I wasn't really active, didn't like sports, didn't like people, which I think probably still true to this day. It was kind of a polar opposite, but I was always in trouble. And to this day, I'm still getting in trouble for something I've said or done publicly most of the time.
Where do you think that stems from? Do you have brothers and sisters? Were you frustrated at home?
Yeah, so I do have a sister. We talk, we get along. There's nothing bad, but we're not like brothers and sisters you see on like TV programs that like talk all the time and like get along like super. I think what made me angry was my parents divorced in 2002. So that would have been when I was, I don't know how old, 20 years ago, quite young. And so I suppose if it happens at this age, we can kind of deal with it a lot more because we've got life experience, we've got emotional intelligence. But then as a kid, I suppose you don't actually deal with it. You sort of say, okay, I get 2 the presents, I get 2 times the houses. It's great. But actually, I think in the back of your mind, it's like childhood trauma of any kind. Yeah. It does things to you. And I think for me, that came out in anger. And I would say only in the past 2 years has the anger not disappeared, but it's at such a small controllable level, versus what it was as a kid. So I think that is what got me in trouble. My expression of their divorce probably was coming out in that kind of anger or aggression of some kind, but also being a recluse because I thought I didn't know what to process it. So I didn't know how to talk about it. Like right now I'm talking about it. And so it came out internally and externally and made me go internally, but also reject people and things externally, which both then, you know what schools are like. They don't nurture or even say, what's the issue? It's like the world of medicine. They say, oh, you've got this, take a pill. Kids, you're this, go detention. Not, what's bothering you? It's like, I don't even remember being asked that, actually. And so, obviously, that led to being in trouble. That led to me continually being in trouble. There's definitely worse kids. There's definitely a lot of kids that were better.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think to a certain extent, sometimes when you get into the kind of things that you're doing into entrepreneurialism, I think a slight sense of rebellion does actually help propel you a little bit. And I see a shade of that in you. And I think that's it's always interesting to me to find out what kind of drives somebody, what kind of gets them to do all the stuff that you've done in such a relatively short space of time. In terms of the steps that you started taking into the property, the world of property investment, development, what was it that, and at what age did that suddenly catch your eye and catch your attention?
Yeah, so I started my first business when I was 23, which was a recruitment business. It was just me in the business. Profits doubled every year. It was, to be fair, great business model, really easy to start, solid income. And if you're that type of person, good at cold calls, good at salesiness, like you are gonna make so much money. Like seriously, from sitting on your ass in your bedroom, like this is a fact. It may have changed now, but back then, yeah, I just wasn't that guy. So I still made money, enough to kind of get started in property, but I was essentially doing the time equals money equation, right, which everyone talks about. It was, okay, well, if I've made 20 calls today, which is 3 hours, I will make $4,000. Okay, fine. But then it kept getting to the point where actually I didn't enjoy it. So I thought, why am I doing this? Secondly, I thought, this is nice, but like, what if I wake up one day and don't want to work? Which we all have those days. What if I want to go away for a week, but I still want to make money because I want to buy, I just thought there's got to be something or things that can generate income whilst I sleep or whilst I'm not working. And obviously this is an asset, right? That's what you call an asset. And so I did that for 4 years. I went in-house with some really big companies and, I had a lot of fun, got paid a lot of money to probably not do as much work as I could have. But, it worked. Teams grew. I did what I was paid to do. And I wanted something that could just give me the classic thing here, freedom, of waking up on a Monday and baking bread, which I almost did. I did make fresh bread today, to be fair, and it is a Monday. So for me, property was that thing. I looked at stocks and I thought, okay, I could buy, say, £20,000 worth of stock with 20 grand. I looked at property and said, I could buy 90 grand worth of property with this 20 grand because of leverage, because of mortgages. And then I looked at other asset classes and thought, there's no leverage. If I invest in stocks now with 20 grand, I need to have 500,000 here to actually get the return I need in a decent market.
Yeah.
And so it just didn't work out mathematically, whereas property had that leverage, had the BRR model, the ability to recycle your money. And I thought, well, hold on a minute. This makes a lot more sense given the money I had. If I had 500,000, then who knows what I would have done.
Yeah.
But property was an obvious choice. It's safe in the sense that markets don't really crash, like crypto, for example, or Netflix stocks. It's bricks and mortar. It's, again, safe. It's traditional. It goes up in value. It's a commodity in the sense that it's needed.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I think it ticked all the boxes. I had an amount of money that we can talk about that would let me get into property and be leveraged, and I just wanted to put effort in and then stop if I wanted to and just make money, essentially.
And so so when you're on that journey and you're thinking, okay, I need some freedom, I need to not have to get up and go to work every single day, that kind of penny drops, and then you start going about doing some research. Like, what were the channels available to you? Were you going online? Were you speaking to friends and family? Kind of what was it? Was there a specific way of getting that information and data to make those decisions?
Yeah, so look, I think right now in the end of 2022, we're in a much better position than we were in, I think, 2018. It must have been end of 2018, in terms of the amount of free content that's out there, the amount of paid content, the amount of books, the amount of podcasts like this that are available to people like that, and the amount of YouTube videos, etc. At the time, there was a few podcasts I listened to. I can't remember which ones. They weren't very good looking back at them, frankly. There was some books, which again were usually an upsell into a course. So there was that kind of what inspired me to write my book. Meeting people. That was a big thing I did back then. I was like, hey, listen, can I buy you Nando's to pick your brain for an hour?
Wow, good one.
And so I had like a Nando's budget, which was my education budget. And it worked because, pre-COVID and everyone being super busy, whatever, it would actually work. Like, I'd be meeting a lot of people, talking, learning, taking notes, going to networking events, which now, seem to have died a little bit, at least the major ones have. So it was a few books, a lot of kind of podcasts, which weren't amazing, Nando's budget, meeting people, picking their brains, going to networking events, the issue with all of this was it left me with a lot of holes and a lot of bits that needed glue. It's kind of like I had an IKEA flat pack of knowledge, but I had no dowels, I had no screws, I had no instructions. So it was like, I know that, and I know that, and I know this, but how the hell do they form a coherent picture or instruction for what I need to do or how I build a chest of drawers? So it wasn't the best way of doing it. Therefore, I started my podcast, which meant I could sit down like this with people every week for an hour and pick their brains from the comfort of my own home. You can all learn and listen like from it. And I get an hour's worth of knowledge and potentially a relationship every single week. So I took it upon myself to create education for myself and for other people.
Very, very interesting. Similar reason to why I kind of set up Property People. So in terms of your kind of journey towards where you are today, so the property freedom investment, that came just before, and then Tej Talks is kind of a byproduct of that.
So it's the other way around. Well, so Tej Talks started as I was, like I hadn't done a viewing on a property when I started Tej Talks.
Interesting.
So I would say the podcast came first for maybe a month and a half, 2 months, as I was still learning.
So you were already thinking about, okay, I want to get into this field, but how can I kind of get in and amongst it? I need some like Trojan horse almost to be able to get people's time.
Yes.
Interesting. So the worlds kind of collide and it all comes together.
Yes, and people followed me from like the nascency of my own knowledge, because I'd be on a podcast asking questions like, so why do you use blue grit on walls when you're about to plaster? And I'd actually want to know that. And then people would be like, I never knew that. What is that stuff on the walls? And now I ask it because I know, but I'm asking for the audience. But then people really liked being like, he's just like me. He's doing it publicly. And so I think people connected with that journey of going from that to where I am now.
And so from the first podcast that you did, how did that kind of evolve into becoming an actual property investor? And how did that get you to start investing? Because from what I know, you started investing in Wales. Mm-hmm. And you don't actually live anywhere near Wales.
No, I used to live about 2 hours down the M4 in West London. Now I live 3 hours, so I definitely don't visit. And this, we can talk about this later, but the benefit of having good teams and people locally. At the time, how it transitioned was pretty much the education that I got from the podcast allowed me to then take that theory, take that, what I've learned, the steps, the instructions, the guides, and then put it into reality and say, okay, well, now I've got the glue between the bits almost. How can I now put this into reality and do it? And it was just taking action. It was just, I'm going up on a Wednesday, right move, book all the viewings I can, like 15 viewings in a day, no toilet breaks, no food breaks. It was hell. And to be honest, the whole 15 properties in 9 months was hell. People are like, oh my God, I want to do that. I'm like, I don't think you do. But we can talk about that. For me, it was, and this is something that so many people don't do, it's just taking action. It's like I speak to people, oh yeah, Tej, I've been researching property for 2 years. Shut up. Yeah, I'm looking at the camera for this. Shut up. You don't research property for 2 years. Like even developers who are doing new builds, which is the top of the pyramid, are not researching for 2 years. And so it's just in my nature, and I'm impatient. So there was no way I was going to spend more time than I needed to before putting my boots on the ground, wet boots in Wales, cold, rainy, wet boots, and like doing viewings. What also happened was because of the brand, people again saw me doing viewings, and they took an interest in it. Oh, you're doing what I'm doing, but you're showing, or you're doing what I want to do. That built an emotional connection, I realized looking back. What that meant is, and this happened maybe a bit slower than what you're asking, but deals, I've probably got 50% of my deals because of my brand. Wow. So, I know a lot of the time it's like, oh, it will bring in money, like it will bring in investment money having a brand, but sometimes it can actually bring in deals, not just from, this is from a property trader, but from auctioneers, from estate agents, it brought in deals, and then it also brought the money in to fund it. Because people connected with me, saw what I was doing, saw that I was saying, oh, look at this crack, this is structural, it's not, look at what this builder's done, totally messed it up. Whereas most people on Instagram, you know who you are, just walk around and, perfect development, went really well, look how well the finish is, but really they're like, oh my God, I'm dead, that was so hard. I've had people do this where we do something like this.
Yeah.
We film on their site and they talk and they're giving it Johnny Big, yeah, it was easy. I was 400 miles away. I was project managing it. It was, and we did it in 3 weeks. It should have been 5. Yeah. Camera goes off. And man's like, oh, Tej, mate, honestly, that was the worst deal of my life. Took 3 months. Was really, really hard. Lost money here. And I'm like, delete footage. Like, that shit got corrupted. So, I think being real, and to this day still showing when things go wrong, which they do all the time, is really what connected with me, people, and allowed what you're asking there to happen, because they connected with me.
One of the things that I think everyone can definitely agree upon that's been following you today, which you've got a pretty significant following as well off the back of all of this activity, is that you are quite authentic. You very much display the good, the bad, and the ugly of the entire journey, and you put in a lovely kind of like humorous twist on it. At the end of the day, you put a smile on people's face, which I think is when you're doing stuff like what we do in property investment, there is risk, there is no pain, no gain, and it's sometimes refreshing, I think, when you get somebody that can kind of show you the warts and all sides of it. And I think that's been, from my opinion, a big part of your success, and why people have kind of drawn towards you. And it's no surprise, actually, that you've also been able to get deals off the back of it, and so much investing and funding, which I'd like to talk about as well in a little bit more detail. From doing the podcast, you kind of realize, okay, with the money that I've got to spend and invest, what's going on in this particular region, it's probably going to be the best way forward for me. So in Wales, what was going on specifically at that time that you thought, that's my place?
Nothing, actually. It was a combination of non-specific factors that were going on. So, for example, what was happening in Wales at the time was the same as Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, Edinburgh, all these other good places to invest. The main thing was I looked north and said, yeah, that's 3 hours. I looked west and said, that's 2 hours, and said, I'm going there. Yeah. Welsh has a very, very socialist, I would argue, backwards government. So it's really not the best place to invest. Like, some of the changes they're bringing in, some of their policies, a lot of it's very weird. And it's not just me who thinks this, there's a lot of people there who think it as well. It may not be the best place for property investors moving forward. It may not be the best place for me to continue growing. This is something that maybe I could have seen back when I started, but I balanced it all out and said, look, low purchase prices, decent rents versus purchase price. Good yield. Whereas in London, purchase price $1 million, rent $5,000. You're like, it's ridiculous. The yield is not, for me, going to work out. It was fairly close as it could be. There's an economy like there is everywhere. There's certain patches that are better than others. There's certain employers. But to be fair, it wasn't number one on my list, but the distance, and I know myself, and I know that I'm just not going to be driving longer than that, made it work. There were much better places that I looked at up north, but I could not stand the distance and could not stand the journey time. Now, probably doesn't make such a difference because I'm totally like outsourced in distance investing. But yeah, at the time, and I say this to people, if you find an incredible area, great. Or do you have what it takes to make that work? If you don't, then pick a slightly less, amazing area and do what will make you work. Because it's like, if you're going to go on a diet and you should do 1,200 calories a day, but that ain't going to work for you, you're going to cheat, do 1,400 and make it more manageable. Yeah. Like, don't just do it just because you're doing London. Don't do London. Do what works for you.
Absolutely. I think that the whole remote thing, so I personally have invested very much close to home in and around these areas around North and East London, and then a little bit further afield, and going back up to the Northeast, which is where I'm originally from. And at the time, I was single, no kids or anything, and it was okay, it was manageable. But as I got more commitments, I just found it really, really strenuous, to be honest. So I personally have kind of almost reversed and said I can't invest further away. But you mentioned something where you now you're more systemized in your remote investing. So it's not that you've said, okay, goodbye to Wales and anything that's far away. You've found a way to make it work. So what have you put in place to make those things work?
So the number one thing is people. People equals profit, but people also equal pain. We both know how difficult builders are as a species. I know what I'd like to do to most builders, but I'll probably be in prison for a long time. Like, I have an incredible builder, so big up Craig, you know who you are, in Wales, who like does my portfolio maintenance. We've got like a monthly maintenance thing. So any issues, the tenant calls them. He then texts me later saying, oh, by the way, we did this. I'm like, yeah, whatever, send an invoice. He also does like end of tenancy checkouts. I've got a letting agent there who's very, very good, does everything as I need, and also does other bits when required. I've got a good network there, full stop. I can get things done. I have like tenant management software, I think it's called, which tracks all the rent coming in.
Which tenant software is that?
So I use Hammock. It's decent. I'm considering Landlord as well. I've heard it's like meant to be good. But Hammock was a startup when I first discovered them, met them at some event, and I quite like their startup vibe, and I've given them feedback and they've implemented it, which I like. But that's made a big difference to me, whenever rent's due in, just being like, yep, cool. Instead of being like bank account, who's that? It just speeds everything up. But the main thing is people. Like I could say, yeah, I've got Asana, for projects, I've got this and that. But I've got a builder and I've got relationships, and this is also a system, I suppose, but, well, kind of, or a process, relationships with agents or auctioneers that I can get deals without viewing. I don't need to view. I've seen so many now. It's the same thing. Legal packs I can read from home. I can get deals done. I can raise the money from my phone, both. And when it comes to the build, I can give it to Craig and say, here's what we're looking at. Here's the finish. He knows my style. And I'll choose the fittings and finishes because I like that. But we're coming to a point where I won't as much. And I'll just outsource it to my designer or something and say, you do it. Like the project we just did, I didn't need to visit it at all. Only reason I visited it is because I did like a paid site day for people to come see it. Otherwise, I didn't view it.
You didn't view it?
Didn't view it. It's fire damaged. So, I mean, when it's fire damaged, you're like, yep, I had 20 grand, fine. It's fine. He viewed it, but he was like, yeah, same as the pictures, fine. They would have done a refurb. I would have come at the end, and then I would have sold it. And that's it.
And this is in Wales still?
Yeah. And I will keep doing that same, it was called Project Fire, because it was on fire. We will keep doing that same thing. And that was a 40 grand profit, I think it was. None of my own money in. Tons of time-wise. Designing stuff. That's fun for me. That's not work.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 hours, something like that. And it's a beautiful house, properly finished, everything done to a high standard. And then there's 40 grand in my account. And I didn't have to leave my house. Because of him, because of people, because of the brand, because of relationships. It's taken how many years has it been since 2018 to get to this stage? It's taken deals done with people. It's taken money spent. It's taken, how many posts have I put on Instagram now? 700 plus something? To get to the stage where I can do this, right? So I don't want people to think, oh, he's doing it. Ignore all that crap he just said. I can do it in a day. It's like, no. This has taken a lot of days to get to this point. Yeah.
There's a lot of thought, effort, and energy, blood, sweat, tears that goes into getting to that. Yeah. But once you do put all of that in, then you can reap some rewards. It's like planting seeds, right?
Yep.
Eventually, it all comes good. Something else you mentioned actually is the investor finance. So, what would you say, from your experience, are the pros and cons of using investor finance?
I'll start with the cons because there aren't many. There is pressure because, of course, you've got a 12-month loan, 6-month loan, whatever it is, and you have to refinance or sell and hope the market's still stable, et cetera, which it's been interesting for the past few years in that time and paying back. Now, look, I've paid loans back late. One of the recent ones on a cottage I paid back late. I just messaged him and said, look, I think we're going to be up to 6 months late. Here's why. He said, yeah, cool, whatever. He makes more interest. He doesn't care. So there's pressure from investor finance. I think you need to know what you're doing and you need to discuss appropriately with the investor the risks, such as if this doesn't sell, because they may not. I've had investors just say, yeah, how much do you want? Okay. How long do you want it for? Okay. Yeah, send me bank details. I'm like, hold on. Let me tell you about, unless it's a repeat invest, I'm like, let me tell you about this. But a lot of people would say, yeah, cool. But then the investor thinks, oh, guaranteed investment, getting it back in 12 months. There's no issues with it.
No
but
risk.
It's not. Exactly. And if you've not told them that, you're going to be in trouble in a few different ways. So I think that there is risk inherently with it. I'm struggling to think of other cons, because if you do it properly, the only cons are the time pressure and the risk pressure, but both of them you can alleviate through communication and through clear contracts and through explaining the whole process. I would say the pros, I mean, you could have 30 grand in your bank account, but you could have access to 300 or 3 million through investor finance. Now, I'm not saying you should be borrowing 10x maybe what you have in assets. That's a different discussion. But the fact that you can see a house here in London that's going to be worth $500,000, and you're thinking, well, I've only got 20 grand, I can't even afford the flip and stamp duty, and you could afford to buy it and make, say, 100 grand off flipping it with none or very little of your own money, that's incredible. And when you do like a buy, refurbish, refinance, and then you recycle the money and you keep a house and you're like, hold on a minute. And I still do this every single time. I'm like, I put no money in. I've got a house for life. They've got an interest rate. They're happy with that. I'm happy with that. But I put no money in. And I pulled it all back out. And it's gone back to them. And I didn't have, like it blows your mind sometimes, like how you can structure things with investor finance. And I think versus bridging, you haven't got fees. You haven't got usually solicitor fees, or at least they're not as high. You're dealing with a person. I can just text you and say, here's an update, instead of the bridger being like, what's going on? Where's an update? Like some of them can be, especially on development, with development finance, where they just take longer than a flip or a BRR. It's a lot easier and nicer to deal with you than to deal with bridging company, etc. So it's mainly weighted toward the pros, I would say. And
the way that you structure it, because we're talking about bridging, so typically a lender that will give you some money, they will give you up to, let's say, 75% of the purchase price, and then you've got to put up the 25% deposit. If you get like refurb finance or something, they might even give you the build costs, which is similar to development finance. If you use investor finance, do you get them, two questions, I guess. Do you get them to do the whole thing, or do you get them to do the equity part, which is that 25% deposit and maybe the refurb cost? How do you structure it?
Any and all of the above. So it really varies. So when I started out, it was probably more like, they're funding the deposit.
Yeah.
Bridger's funding the rest. And Bridger knows, and they both know, there's a Bridger, there's an investor. And they might fund the refurb as well, because with Bridgers, maybe it's changed now, but when I was heavily developing, it was like, you pay the builder, we'll pay you in arrears, and we'll send out a surveyor for 400 quid a pop to kick the wall and say, they built a wall, mate, send in the money. It's so stupid. So I kind of just thought, and even the Bridger said to me, Tej, like, it's a bit of a crap product, just find it yourself. I was like, all right, fine. So deposit and refurb, or just deposit, and I'd fund the refurb. Since sort of the first 3 or 4, it's pretty much been investor funds, 100% of the purchase and refurb. And most instances they get a first charge because they're funding, 100% plus loan to value, so it's only fair. I have no reason not to give them one. Some people are touchy about like giving these away, but I'm like, they're giving you like 100% LTV. Give them a first charge. They want a PG, you can have a PG, it's fine. So I structure it in whichever way works the best, but I only have one investor per deal, because otherwise it becomes a CIS, which you're not allowed by FCA unless you're regulated, blah, blah, blah. So it's usually one investor per deal. And the beauty of it is it can be structured any way you like. They could put in 10%, you could put in 15%, Bridger puts in the rest, and then, fine.
Yeah. I think that's interesting that you kind of keep an open mind and then see what's available to you and then structure it accordingly. And I do agree. I think, especially when you're doing refurb finance, on a small scale, it just depends on how much access you have to all the different buckets of capital.
Yeah.
But if you're doing kind of like a 20 grand refurb, if you can just find it yourself rather than have a lender come and send somebody out and all this sort of stuff, it does start to get a little bit more arduous. I guess when I'm just imagining the scenario where you've got an investor that's giving you 100% of the cash and the refurb money, so they're just absolutely giving you everything. They're taking a first charge and a PG, which is you putting in a little bit of risk, them having a little bit of security, saying, look, if really shit hits the fan, I'm going to be able to at least have something to show for my money. But your intention is, from my understanding, is that you're going to increase the value, and then you're going to be able to refinance out and then be able to pay them back, if not in whole, vast majority of it. So if there's a down value, or if there's some money left in, let's say, how do you go about paying them back that small bit that's left in?
Yeah, so this is interesting because it's a question a lot of beginners ask, and it's a question a lot of experienced people don't answer. Because there's one way of doing it, which I think is like a Ponzi scheme, where I'm paying him back, but I'm missing 10 grand. Hey, Sam, do you want to invest in one of my deals over there? 10 grand? That's not really what you're supposed to do. So what I did was, and I always recommend this to people, whether they start with it or they do it later, is to have like ongoing flips at the same time as your BRs, because I knew from day one, look, I could take all my money out, and this was in a market where it was like kind of not standard, but it's not like it is now, maybe, or like it has been. So I knew there's going to be a chance here that I am going to have to leave some money in. So I had enough of my own money as well that I could leave in if needed. So I was like, tick, I've got a kind of security blanket here.
Okay, that's quite cool. So you've got this kind of reserve. If I have to pay you off, I can do it if I need to, but I just don't want to. That's my rainy day vulture fund.
Yes, and I would show that to investors. Say, look, here's this money in an account. It is here, and I don't touch it in case I need to put more money in.
Yeah.
So cool. And not everyone has that. I'm not going to say luxury because I worked for it, but not everyone has that ability to do that. So fine. But this is where planning comes into it, and knowing that, if you do get a downval, which Rick's surveyors, maybe one of you could do your job properly for once. I don't know. I still haven't met one of you who can. Like what you're going to have to do is either sell it, because you usually get a higher val when you sell, although I've had occasions where it's totally the opposite way around. Or if you keep it and you leave money in, you're going to then need a flip to kind of cover that. And it's kind of annoying in a sense because you're like, well, I just generated 50 grand and now I have to, like that's it, full stop. Like if you need to pay someone back, you have to pay someone back. And that's where I would explain it to people. I'd say, look, this deal you're investing in is a BRR. However, I've actually got a flip going on right now, which lands before your deal or lands after your deal. So within our 12 months, I still have the ability to pay you back from this source. And most of them they wouldn't even ask this. But it's our responsibility to say, by the way, down values happen. If they do, here's the account, here's my flip. So the way I did it was
this is how it's going to work. And this, so I mean, if so that you're still accruing interest, so they're still kind of earning as it's kind of prolonged. But you're just I guess not negotiating so much, but just giving them an update on this is how I intend to pay you back X, Y, and Z. Is there ever an opportunity through the income that the property should start generating, or depends on how much is left in, I guess? Yeah,
so because they're single lets, it'll take a bit of time to pay back the money that's left in.
Yeah.
Usually, like, because I have done it previously, and I won't do this again. Like paid monthly interest when I was like starting out, because people would say, "Well, how do I know you're going to pay?" And I was like, "Okay, do it monthly." So some of that monthly rental income would then just pay them off. Pay that kind of interest off, which is cool because actually you could argue then I had interest-free loan because the rent paid it off, but that's not how it works. But some people look at it like that. So if you had a HMO or like a big 12 blocks of flats, the income could definitely pay off a chunk of that. But you've got to just sort of be careful on the maths of, well, if there's 4 months left on the loan and it's £2,000 a month, is it going to make up what they need? And this is where communication comes in. The second anything I think is going to like be delayed or go wrong, anything, or even an early payback, because some of my investors are like, I need to be in and out of investments. Like there's no waiting around. Like when COVID hit, like literally the second it was announced or whatever, I sent an email to all my investors. I think it was like 5 or 6 at that time saying, look, I don't know what's going on. Hey, no, but the government don't know. They never did. But I just want to let you know, I will do what I can. But there could be delays. If I can't leave my house, if I can't do this. So just things like that, like being on it and communicating are important to everything in life, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And then, I mean, I'm a massive fan of high yields in general. I just think it helps you with your day-to-day cash flow. Well, they say revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and then cash is reality. So that kind of positive cash flow really helps you live the life that you want, but also pay off people and do this, that, and the other. Just gives you that buying power. To increase the yield, things like service accommodation, do you dabble in any of that sort of thing?
Yes. So I have 2 SA units. They are amazing because they are totally passive. We've got managing agents, so more passive than my buy-to-lets, which I know people say, oh, passive income, is it real, is it not? In my experience, it's as passive an income I could get for the level of income. I could invest in stocks and I get dividends on free trade 14p a month. So it's not really, it's not doing much, is it? Well, once I got like $4 and I was like,
wow.
hey, yeah, it was like BP. And I was like, I feel bad investing in BP, but, you know, so like for the level of income I get, it's as passive as it can be. And like, if I look through my messages, and it really is, you know, as passive as it can be. So because of that, you know, like the SA unit appealed to me because I thought what you said, better yields. I also thought, this could be even more passive, like, and it is. And also I thought, let me diversify. Let me have different tenant types where the mortgage allows. I know sometimes they don't allow certain tenant types. And let me have service accommodation so I can really, you know, make the most of the summer market when it's usually hotter. And then in the winter market, okay, it will be a buy-to-let. You know, and overall, like I did hours of like extrapolation on my spreadsheets to see, well, if I got to spend $5 on furniture, is it going to actually pay me back what it should? You know, so it wasn't just let's do SA. It was
try it out, see what happens.
Yeah.
You go through the numbers, you go through the motion, do the due diligence, find somebody to manage it for you.
Everything. And so yeah, I love SA, and I'd rather do SA over HMO because there's no tenancy, so there's no whinging people. And I think an SA you can make a bit sexier and you can kind of do a little bit more with than a HMO. So I think the creative element is cheaper in an SA. Yeah, I just prefer SA. There's just less. I know you get people wrecking them, but there's just less issues than HMOs.
Yeah, you know, the whinging thing, I was always a bit worried that somebody's going to be worried that there was a hair found on a pillow or something like that, and you get a bad review, and it just all starts to get a little bit like a hotel running it from day to day.
Yeah.
But my experience, fortunately, has been that it's not quite that bad, actually. If you've got a good managing agent, they normally make sure there's no hairs on the pillow for a start. But the people are in or out, so they're not like, oh, I need to live here forever. And they're just possibly a little bit less demanding. If you've got somebody good managing it, then the property is better kept as well because you've got cleaners in regularly. And I don't know, I found that the yield and the amount of effort it takes, it just overall, it's a better play in general. Mm-hmm. But that said, there seems to be a lot of regulation coming out, or talk about regulation coming out, to stop too many people putting general day-to-day kind of homes for everyday people on the short let market and taking away stock from renters, which is shooting rents up. So that's the other thing, kind of with every market, there's an element of saturation. Mm-hmm. And so you've done the buy-to-let thing, you've done the kind of flip thing. Where do you see yourself going in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you still as mad about property as you were when you once started?
No, not at all, to be honest. Don't you know, I'm on this property podcast. So like Tej Talks is actually changing in January so by the time this gets released, it will not be what it was, because property is fantastic, great asset. I am incredibly grateful that I have retired if I want to, not mentally, but financially, because of property. And I did it in a very short period of time. So love property, it's great. But I hate solicitors. I hate builders. I hate. I just hate everyone involved, and I hate the industry and land. It's too outdated. It's too antiquated. Everyone's a dinosaur. Everything's a dinosaur. I look at my developer friends doing planning permission, and I just think, how do you not murder everyone in the council? Because you're all morons, and you prevent houses being built. And this whole stopping, SAs, I'm like, you lot are dumb, innit? Because you want to stop SAs, right? But then you charge us like 200% extra council tax on empty properties when we're refurbishing them. You don't let developers build stuff, even though Boris was like, oh, build. It's like, it's just, I feel like everyone is so dumb. The people in the government don't actually understand property. Who's the head of property? It's not Gove, is it?
Yeah, I think so at the minute.
What's his background in property?
He lives in one.
Great. So then my mum should be the flipping prime minister then, basically. Like, it's just, there's no rhyme or reason to what they say. They disagree with each other. The councils are a joke, half of them bankrupt or going bankrupt. I just think, like, property for me, I can't deal with all of this. It just annoys me too much. I've dealt with it, but then I look at life and say, life's way too short. Like, saying I inject humor into stuff. Because life's too short, man. Like, I can't be serious. Like, people are like, Tej, what are you doing nowadays? I'm having fun. That's it, full stop. Don't ask me about business. I'm having fun.
At the end of the day, it's laugh or cry, right?
It's laugh or cry. And I've cried a lot in property, right? So I think, some people love property and they do it from birth till they die. And I love that because they're doing stuff for the economy and for the world. And like, I just love when I see people who are so passionate about something. Property isn't for me. I didn't think it would be. Like I thought 3 or 4 years is going to be an expiry date. Like I kind of saw in recruitment. I think I'm just a bit fickle as well. So for me, I'm going to buy property till I die. Like I said, I'm going to buy, it's going to be outsourced, as I was saying. It's going to be very much like, don't talk to me, see you in 3 months. Show me that when it's finished. Like I'm still investing. It's a great asset, but I'm diversifying into buying businesses. I'm starting a restaurant business or buying one, depending on how that goes soon. The brand is changing to hopefully kind of move to more public speaking opportunities and more kind of workshops, that kind of thing. Maybe even TV and radio. I think I've got a face for TV and radio, but your viewers can let me know. I am, investing more in stocks and like looking at other opportunities and just other business ideas because life's too short. I want to have fun. Property is just not giving me that anymore, and the elements I loved about it get killed by builders. So if I love designing stuff, I'm so infuriated with them, apart from my one good builder. Like I'm doing my residential at the moment and it's so hard to kind of manage it and then still have the energy to be like, oh, I need black crystal glass there, I need pink tiles there, I need this. So the bits I enjoyed have just been killed, and I've done what I needed to do. I've built a foundation, I've built a financial retirement, pension, whatever you want to call it. I'm good. Let's on to the next, basically.
The PLMD Group are the proud sponsors of the Property People channel. The PLMD Group is a holding company for PLMD Development, PLMD Estate Management, and PLMD Capital. With over 15 completed projects, the PLMD Group and their team have expertise in property development, in estate management, in local planning policies, and they have the ability and track record of taking liabilities and turning them into income-producing assets. With over 20 years of experience using their own money and working with investments, the PLMD Group here in their office in East London hold monthly and quarterly events, so do reach out to them. They've always got an open door and they're looking forward to meeting with you. I just feel bad for you that you've been so scarred by builders. Give me an example of something crazy that you've done with a builder.
I won't tell you what I've done to them because that'll just be if we get criminal.
No, what
record.
they've done to you, yeah. We don't want to incriminate you on this.
I'm sure it'll come on my Instagram at some point. I'll let it slip. So I think some of the funniest. So obviously radiators, right? They come out the ground. There's pipes, into the ground, through the carpet, in underground to the boiler, whatever. Anyways, I'm on site, and my plumber was on site checking my builder's work, who's also a plumber, aren't they all? And he's looking at the rad. He goes, Tej, yeah, there's a rad here where you wanted it. And he just sort of tripped and he goes, what's happened there? And he goes, Tej. And he said this on a video and he was pissing himself. And I put it on my Instagram and everyone loved it. You know how the pipes go into a radiator like this, like an L shape?
Yeah.
He basically twisted the pipes up. And he goes, Tej, your pipes aren't connected to anything. It's going straight into the carpet. I said, what the like, and he was pissing himself, and I was like, you're going to be the one fixing it. It's like, what are you laughing at? So I was like, so things that builders are like that, where it's like, yeah, the radiator's all plumbed in, mate. Yeah, it's all in. They just shoved it on the carpet. I've had things where, we had a ceiling and he didn't use blue grit on the ceiling, despite being told this. My painter, I get a call from my painter, 8 a.m. Tej, mate, your ceiling's on the floor.
No way.
I was like, are you drunk on site again? Like, the ceiling's up there, the floor's here. I'm like, it's a language barrier. Like, your ceiling's on your floor, mate. So what do you fucking... I was like, bruv, send me a picture. My ceiling is shattered, like shards of glass of plaster all over the floor. The day it needs painting, the day before X, Y. I'm like, because he didn't use the right thing. And like, this could have happened on my tenant with a baby.
Somebody sitting there. Yeah, oh my God.
Lying about. And I've just had so many things where...
Oh my God.
Like, for example, I'll take a picture of a room, right? Like, say the camera's looking at us now. They'll take a picture from where the cameras are. But of course, behind them, pile of shit. It's a mess. Coke on the floor. And I don't mean the one you drink. Just stuff everywhere. And of course, you're like, good job, mate. I'll transfer the money. I can see it's all done. You get there and you're like, the hell is that? Just so many things where it's a cultural thing, right? It's like builders as a species. It's just, they get away with it. It's like solicitors get away with not responding to emails because well,
busy, and they all are, so it's okay.
It's like, go find one that responds to your email, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. So I just, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's just a cultural thing. Like, will it ever change? I don't think so.
Is the grass greener on the other side, though? If you go into kind of business and stuff? Because I know you've dabbled in some crypto and NFTs and stuff like that. Is it going to be, all right, not exactly the same dinosaurs, but it's going to be other kind of sharks and kind of choppy waters?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, it's not going to be greener. It's greener wherever you water it. But I think sometimes you're happier to grow grass in a certain place because you're happy to tend to that garden, while we're sticking on this analogy, than it is another garden because, like, you just rather, like, I'd rather, say I have a restaurant, I'd rather deal with a food supplier messing around than I would with a builder. I can sue the food supplier pretty easily. Builders, I've sued enough. It's still not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Have you actually gone through with it?
Yeah, loads. See, the CCJs have been given out like we're a strip club, literally CCJ City, baby. And tenants as well. Like, I'm like, look, if you're breaking the law, you're doing what you shouldn't be doing, you're getting fucked. Simple as that.
Yeah, I'm going through one right now with some students. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they didn't pay the rent and they had a mass party and trashed the place. I was like, something's got to give. Either you've got to pay me back for everything or, you got to pay for it. I'm not going to pay for your party.
Listen, they'll regret it. When they go to get a mobile phone contract and they say, sorry, madam, you've got a CCJ, they'll be like, what's a CCJ? And I'll be like, you should have paid when you should have paid. And this country is way too light on tenants and like them getting away with all sorts of crap. So, yeah, like I think, I was speaking to my friend Alfred and I kind of said to him, I want real problems. Like for me, property, because it was never a business with staff and it was never going to be that, it was a portfolio and an asset thing. And I thought, I just look at some of the issues I have and I think, this is not a real problem. If you just respond to them and speak clearly to each other, it's fixed. If you just did your job, it's fixed. These are not real problems. This is like, you're an idiot. Why are you being an idiot? So it's not greener on the other side, but I'm happy to deal with it on the other side. And I think certain businesses, it's like, so as entrepreneurs, you know what it's like. We blame ourselves. Someone messes up, we're like, it was me. In property, I've kind of realized that as much as I do that, I'm still like, it's actually your fault. It's actually your fault.
That's harsh to blame me.
Yeah, it's like, I will take the blame because I could have done X, Y, Z, but you're an idiot. So in other businesses, I think more of the blame can actually be attributed to you. Like if you're trading, for example, it's you in the market. If you mess up, who are you going to blame? Like actually, who are you going to blame? No one but yourself. So I'm just looking for something different in that sense. And I suppose I get bored easily as well. It has been 4 years now.
But the funny thing is that anyway, for most people that I know, whether they are in property full time or they're doing it on the side, they tend to make loads and loads of money and then they go and park it into more real estate anyway. So now that you've got that flavor, now that you've got that foundation, now that you know what to look for, how to do it, how to kind of scale it up, I guess the more money that you create, then you can always diversify and put it into park it into what they call generational wealth, which will go up long-term in value and give you a nice dividend at the end of every month. So that skill set never goes away. No one can ever take that away from you. One thing that you mentioned, though, as well, going into next year, you're going to want to do more workshops and this sort of thing, because you do have a mentoring program. What is the most difficult thing about being a mentor?
The most difficult thing... So there's two things. So as much as I'm Tej Talks, like some reason biologically, I have like a very weak voice. Like even now my voice is not 100%. Like if I have to do 3 or 4 mentoring sessions in a day, I'll lose my voice. I'm like, some Tony Robbins shit, honestly. Like I don't understand why. But that's actually one of the difficult things that like my mentee was trying to get a session this week and I was like, dude, I can't fucking speak. Like even today, I was like, oh, please bring it back for these podcasts. So that's one of them. But that's, I suppose, quite personal to me. I think one of the hardest things about mentoring is, and this is also the best thing about it, because it depends on who you're mentoring, it is like when they don't do the work or when they do the work. So I've got some mentees who like, I'm just like, flipping out, you're exhausting, man. Like you're doing so much. Like,
oh, wow.
And I have to say to them, can you look after your health? Like what you eat? Like some people I said, what are you eating? Like, what's your body fat? Are you going to the gym? Like, what? Like, some people I have this discussion because I look at them and say, something's wrong with you, man. Like, you're not eating enough. You're like, and I think as a mentor, it's important to do that as well, because what's the point of mentoring someone to build £1 million portfolio but they're dead? Or
it's health, wealth, and
it's everything.
generally well-being. Yeah.
Like, what's the point of having all this? What's the point of being a fat cat, literally, right? Like that old saying in the top hat. So what's the point of being that? So when they don't do the work, it's so annoying. You know what? Is it annoying? Okay, it's not annoying because I just shout at them. I just say, what are you doing? Why are you doing the work? So I get to take it out. And this is what I say to people. I say, look, if you're like signing up for a mentorship with me, you're going to get bollocked. If you don't do it, I'm going to embarrass you. It may even be in front of other people. I say, look, don't get in this with me if you're not ready to be told off. Because I'm not in it to be like, oh, you didn't do your KPIs for 3 weeks in a row. That's okay. You were tired, weren't you? Okay. So this week, I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, do you want to reach your goals or not? So...
wow, yeah, but we've got to be straight with people.
I've got to be straight with people. I'm like, so why are you paying all this money? Like, I'm like, why are you paying all this money? And it's the same thing on the phone when I'm vetting them. I'm like, you're saying you're all this shit. Are you going to do it? Because some people come to me for like the one-off calls. One guy did the other day, and I said, when was the last time we had a call? And I was setting him up, and he goes, about 4 months ago. I said, you said you were going to do something then. He goes, oh yeah, I was going to like do 40 viewings. Like, how many viewings you done? 0. I said, waste, man. I said, what's wrong with you? So what, after this call, you're going to go and do nothing again? Is that what you're going to fucking do? No. I was like, well, don't book another call in if you're going to do that same shit. Because it's a waste of my energy. Like, you don't want to, like, if you hire someone to work with you, you don't want them to turn up and be like, yeah, I'll do the calls later. Or like, oh, I can't be bothered today. You want to be around, like, people who are performing.
Yeah.
So when they don't, that annoys me, but at least I get to show it to them.
Do you ever ask him, like, why haven't you done it?
Yeah, all the time. So I always ask before.
What do they say?
If they have a real reason, like, bereavement, or like I had to do this for family. If there's like a genuine reason, I'm like, cool.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, but I always kind of say to them, look, like, do you think you could have still done it, or was it a total lock off? Because I want them to think in front of me, because I'm staring at them and saying, what do you think? If they're like, oh, I could have, then I say, look, come on. But if they're like, oh, mate, I was, the whole time I was this, that, and the other, I say, look, cool. So maybe next week, let's lower the target so that we can realistically achieve that based on your thing. Like, some of them say, yeah, I'm going to do 40 viewings next week. And I say, haven't you got a 9 to 5? Yeah. Haven't you got mate's birthday party? Haven't you got? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, we're going to do 20 viewings next week, because, so I always ask. I never just go straight into it, because they could say, someone died. And I'm like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are excuses and there are reasons. But like, yeah, sometimes it's just like, oh, I don't know, got busy with this. And I'm just like, shut up. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to achieve what you want to achieve, and a lot of them say, oh, Tej, I want to do what you did, the 15 in 9 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I think that's quite inspirational, right? Not everybody wants to buy loads of properties in a short space of time.
Of course. And I say, well, I wasn't pissing around. You know what I mean? Like, here's what I did. Are you on it? You know what I mean? So I just hold people by a high standard, because like, it also reflects on me. If my mentees are not achieving stuff, it doesn't 100% reflect on me. You can take the horse to water, but it still reflects on me. So it's important for me to only be working with people who are going to do stuff. And that's why I'm strict, and that's why there's application, all that kind of stuff. It's not just like send the money and we're in. I turn down more people than I accept, because it's just a waste of time. I'm not going to lose my voice over, people not wanting to achieve real stuff.
Indeed. And like, in terms of mentorship and education and stuff like that, which I think is really, really important. I think education across the board is just generally a very important thing. The children are the future and all of that. But education companies in property get a very bad rep. Why do you think that is?
Because they're not authentic. Simple as that. And it's so jarring when people aren't authentic, because as humans, we're meant to be who we are. We're not meant to be someone else. I'm not meant to drive around in a Bugatti right now if I can't afford one. I'm not meant to take a picture in your Lamborghini and say, yeah, just went there to dealership. Like, that's not me. So, like, a lot of people do that because it's easy, it's cheap. Right now, if I wanted to, like, sort of stunt and look like whatever, and I would make more money on my education. I know I'd sell more courses. I guarantee you. All I need to do is call a mate and say, mate, can I take a few pictures in the Lambo? Yeah, sure, no worries. You got a rollie on that? Yeah, pass the roll. You got an AP? Yeah, let me put that on. Borrow my friend's Prada top and just be here and I can do that today. And I know this week I'll make thousands of pounds. Like, I know I will. I'm not doing it because it's not me and this is me. So people not being authentic is, I think, the kind of umbrella or the core reason why they have a bad rep, because the expectations are set at you can be financially free in 30 days with one deal sold. Okay. Anyone watching who's a deal sourcer, who's a good one, so that's about one of you in the whole country, you will watch this and you will say, that's impossible. It took me 3 months to get my first deal. Then I had to wait 3 months for conveyancing. So it actually took 6 months. And then I had to pay off my fees. So actually I made $1,000 and I wasn't financially free. That's what most real deal sources will tell you, right? But of course, the education, the videos, the bonanzas, all this crap say, yeah, one deal. Here's Jimmy. And Jimmy got one deal in, and he's the top 1% who fluked a deal because his dad's an estate agent. But they don't tell you that. And he's a million. Like, so there's a lot of stunting and like setting, a lot of fluff that's not real. So then you tell me, right, I can do a development in London in 6 months, right? Bullshit. We both know this. You tell me this, I give you the money, I come to your course, and then you sort of tell me that, or you don't tell me that. But then when I then leave and go into the real world, and in 10 months I say, hey Sam, I got my first offer accepted, but you said it was 6. Or like even 10 months, I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere, these flipping landowners. I'm then like, hold on a minute. My man said 6 months. I paid him how much? And it's 10 months. And I'm sitting here fiddling my bloody thumbs. And so the expectation versus reality. You know, there's like memes with like expectation versus reality.
Yeah.
The whole industry is that. Like, because they tell you one thing, but it's never achieved in real life. And that's why I say to people, yeah, it took 9 months to buy 15 properties. Sure. But like, it's taken X many months with each property. Some properties took 1.5 years to get remortgaged before I even saw profit from it. But I'll tell you that. Like 9 in 15 is great and it was incredible and it took a lot. But to actually then get the money from the 15, like 1.5 years afterwards. People don't want to hear it. They just want to hear like you go on my Instagram, look at a post where I say, you know, sold a flip for 40 grand my last project fire and then like 55 or 60 for the one before. So many likes,
Everybody
comments,
loves that stuff.
Everything, I'm showering me in gold like I'm in Dubai, yeah? Like I'm a gold crusted steak in that post, right? And then any other post where I'm like, guys, here's some 3 tips for you how to raise money. Or like, oh, flipping heck, you know, the reality of this. Half the likes, half the comments. It's society's fault as well. As much as I blame the trainers, I blame us for being doofuses and being like, 6-pack, 6 days? Yeah. I'm like, bruv, there's a lot of, you know what I mean? So
it's the gullible people that fall for it are almost as culpable as the people that are putting out.
It's like chicken and egg. It's like, who do we blame? Because if and again, it's ethics. If you see an opportunity in a market, you're going to take it. And if you're a doofus, you're going to take that opportunity. But at the same time, let me not be too rude. If you're not in property and you're not in business, you're walking on the street, you work a normal office job, and this guy who's blue ticked in front of a Ferrari says, yeah, you can do it in 14 days. You're going to believe him. Like, you know what I mean? You're going to believe him because
you're vulnerable as well. Because you think,
course.
I need this, I want this, and I want to believe it. So therefore, people kind of dive into it. So, I mean, it is unfortunate, but I think it is part of the human psyche. Question I have as well, in terms of advice that you give to investors, what do they need to focus on first? Is it the deal or is it the money?
Okay. Responsibly, the money. Because you shouldn't be putting offers on things if you can't complete. You shouldn't be bidding at auction if you can't exchange. And of course, with auction, you exchange there and then. Nowadays, it's like within 24 hours, but it's basically there and then. Or you put a deposit down before you bid. So, you shouldn't be doing that without the money. The way I've done it is do the deal first. I've done it at auction where I did not have money to complete. And some of them might have been 14-day completions. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. It was very quick. And I had enough money as a deposit, fine, from rental income, from whatever. But a lot of the time I did not have the money to complete. Offers. I put out like 300 offers in my lifetime, more. If they all said yes, we got a problem. So there's kind of a balance there. Now, I've raised the money quickly because of the brand. So I've had stuff, like I said, 14 days where I raised the money 4 days later with a new investor. I've had stuff where lockdown happened and I had to raise the money because I just won an auction a week before. Great timing. So responsibly, should have the money first. The issue is, if I give you money now, I'm getting interest from today onwards. You're not getting a deal tomorrow. It's going to take you 2-3 months. You're paying the interest. You're counting down our time together.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a balance. I say you always got to be like entertaining both. And if you're getting close to an offer, let people know, hey, like I'll say, hey, like for my buying businesses stuff, I'll say, hey, I'm buying the businesses, looking for this amount, probably in January, February. Or like I've got a potential deal coming up, I'm looking for money.
So you're lining up one side by side next to the other, right?
Trying to, but a lot of the time, it's like an investor wants a tangible thing to invest in. So if you show them a deal pack, if you show them I've got a house, then the doors open. Suddenly everyone comes running. When you don't, which kind of makes sense, there's less people interested. So you may find that you have to get a deal secured first, and then the money. If it's auction, you're playing with fire, but that's fine because fire does lots of good stuff. But if it's a normal estate agent thing, you could have 3 months to raise the money. So get a deal first responsibly, but it's a balance. There's no real answer.
And one of my final questions, I mean, all that makes sense, to be honest. I think that you need to have the money lined up before you go shopping. So it's kind of, but then at the same time, if you want to run close to the edge, if you can find the deal and then scramble for the money. It's not like literally being in a shop where you need it there and then you can always scramble and get it 15, 20 days. Most transactions take up to 3 months. So that all makes sense to me. But the final question that I wanted to ask you, with the dabbling that you've done in the digital NFT crypto space, one of the things I personally believe will help the industry with smoother, faster, more transparent transactions, for example, is the blockchain technology and getting like legal packs and everything in one place. Because I know you've been on a bit of a journey with it, as everybody has. I don't know if you've been following the recent FTX stuff.
Everyone's just collapsing. Everything's just a joke. Some of them you kind of saw coming. Some of them you thought, oh, that's shocking. I mean, I'm sure Binance will collapse soon, and then, or I better not say that because I'll get a red dot on my head. There's an assassin somewhere out there. But yeah, they're all going to flop, I'm sure. Nexo at some point. I don't know. Everyone's collateralized, and they've got these accounting firms saying that they've got assets to match it. I'm like, where the hell you got billions of pounds? I just don't believe stuff.
Do you think that this is the end of blockchain, or do you think that there's going to be like a phoenix of it? Because a lot of people are saying it's like the internet, where basically the dot-com bubble blew up, but the internet didn't go away, and the internet is now bigger than ever and continues to grow. So what's your, because from an investment asset class, NFTs and cryptos and blockchain technology, do you see a future in human society? Or do you think it's been just this big fad thing that's kind of come and gone?
I see a future for the technology. I think maybe the big players, maybe some of the currencies won't necessarily last. But at the same time, we are in a kind of risk-off, or risk-on, whatever it is, right now market. You could say a bear market. You've got stocks like Netflix, Google, etc., dropping like they're crypto. We're in a place, and then we're in a recession, etc., etc. We're in a place where actually everything is a bit crap. So it's only natural that crypto has dropped so much. And of course it drops more dramatically just because it does, it's new, blah, blah, blah. So I'm kind of I don't think it's going to go away, because I think actually the technology makes sense. Like the Lightning Network for like super fast payments, Ripple, if that ever gets out of its 20-year lawsuit, whatever, for like, settling payments. I think there's so much that like can be done with it, with or without regulation, I don't know. But like I think blockchain, like for example, and here's an idea, someone do this, I can't be bothered. Every property should have a property passport, which is on the blockchain, which is like an NFT.
Yeah.
So instead of having solicitors deal with it, you probably have blockchain engineers. And like every gas cert, every electric cert is straight onto that smart contract. So when you buy a house, it's all there.
Yeah, that's what I can't believe it's not. They had, I don't know how long ago it was, must have been over 10 years, the HIP pack, the Home Information Pack, which is where the EPC kind of came from, because the EPC was part of that, but it was just such a baff on that they just got rid of the rest of it and kept the EPC. So I think if you bring that back in some way, but it was such a massive paper exercise, hauling this Home Information Pack from one solicitor to another but if you put it into a blockchain and it just transfers with the property to whoever it goes, and it's all digitally stored in a cloud, which we didn't have in those days. I just think that there's something in that not sure when or how it will happen, but I do think that these two worlds need to collide, and hopefully make our life a little bit easier.
100%.
You are a property person. You've done so much, and you've obviously done it with passion as well. The highs and the lows. What does it take? When you're getting your mentees, what does it take to be? This property is called Property People, right? So, what does it take to be a property person and to do the kind of things that you've done?
It takes patience. Okay, so Gary Vee says it. It takes micro impatience, but macro patience. So if you're not responding to my email in a certain amount of time, I'm chasing you. If you have taken 4 weeks to plaster a 2-bedroom house, we have a really big issue. If, little things are not going as they should, I'm going to chase them. I'm going to be impatient. We're going to make stuff happen. But on a macro picture of, I'm trying to buy 10 houses this year, I have to have the patience to understand that you put in the work, it comes out. Property is really slow, especially single buy-to-lets. You put a lot in, you get arguably a small income out for the amount of work you put in. I need to have that top level, big picture patience that we're getting there. It's coming. It's only bleeding February and I've got 2. It's like, okay, we're getting there. So that micro impatience, macro patience, I think you just have to be able to deal with problems every single day. I'm not an anxious person. I can public speak in front of thousands of people, hundreds. I've done in front of thousands of people. No issue, right? About anything, anytime, nothing. Doing refurbs and even now thinking of it, I'm getting a feeling in my stomach, would make me anxious because I'd wake up. Back then I probably got up a bit later, and I know the second I look at this phone, someone's going to have a problem. Builder's going to message, there's going to be some issue on site or what's going on. Having the ability, the grit to deal with that and have stuff thrown at you is so important. Problem solving is really important. And another thing is construction knowledge. You don't have to be a builder, but in my opinion, you need to understand how everything is done. I can't plaster a wall. I can tell you how to. I can't, rewire a house. But I've spoken to enough electricians that I know and I understand it. So I can tell when things are, being done wrong. A lot of people don't have that. So yeah, do a refurb, find a builder, get them in, and then rent it out and they're done. I'm like, all the best. See you in 3 months when you need mentoring. Having the ability to understand construction, YouTube is incredible for this, various forums, etc. Combined with that problem solving, me and my builder will always go back and forth about, what do we do there? What can we do there? How can we do that? Can we do that? Because I'll bring ideas that are non-building mind. I'll bring some wacky, Shoreditch stuff and be like, just put a big blast there, put this here. And so I think those qualities are really, really important. And you've got the usual ones like a good mindset, always learning. People skills is really important. I struggle with that. As you can tell, I'm very blunt. So I do struggle with that. But yeah, grit, patience, micro impatience, construction knowledge, and problem solving, for me, are the core tenets to it.
Well, Tej, it's been an absolute pleasure spending some time with you. If people want to find you and reach out, what's the best way they can find you?
Instagram's probably the easiest and quickest way to get hold of me. So just Tej Talks on Instagram, but same on Facebook, YouTube, Amazon. Just type Tej Talks in and I should be the first one coming up.
Hope to catch up with you again, find out what you're doing next year and how your property portfolio grows with all your other business ventures. Wish you the best of luck.
Thanks for having me, Sam. Appreciate it.
Really hope you enjoyed that video. If you'd like to see more, watch this next video up here or click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon and stay tuned. We'll have lots more videos with property professionals across the industry coming up soon. Have a great day.